Hello, everybody. This is attorney Veronica McClendon, the owner and CEO of McClendon Law and Consulting, located in Macon, Georgia. Today, I want to talk to you about 7 mistakes that heirs property owners make when they are managing family land. We're going to talk through some of these mistakes. I'm sure that y'all know somebody who has made one of these mistakes, but that's why we're here, because I want to make sure that you know exactly what you need to be thinking about and the things that you don't need to be doing if you own heirs property and if you want to make the most of this land that you have inherited. So the number one thing that I want to talk about, not necessarily in order of priority, because there's some on here that probably are more high level than this, but the first thing I want to talk about is not having your property surveyed and not having a survey plat that was done perhaps within the last 20 years, probably the last 15 years would be even better. The reason why this is important is because if you don't have a land survey, if you don't have a good plat, then how do you really know what you own? A lot of people rely on the website, the tax assessor's website. Here in Georgia, our tax assessor maintains tax maps, and it kind of gives you an idea of the lines of your property, but you cannot rely on those lines. I have seen situations where a client had a tax parcel, they had a map and it showed their property on there, but then there was another tax map that overlapped it where it looked like their property didn't even exist. And so it's very important that you don't rely on the tax assessor's map or any kind of aerial maps. You need a good survey. And I will say that this could be Georgia specific, but I would presume to say that you need a good land survey done by a registered land surveyor. Make sure that they have a license. However your state licenses or accredits land surveyors, you want to make sure that that person meets those requirements, because if you don't have those requirements in place, you might end up with a survey plat that you can't rely on. So make sure you have that survey, that property surveyed properly, that you have a plat to show that the property was surveyed so that you know what the boundary lines of your property are. Number 2 is very related. You need to make sure, one of the number 2 mistake that heirs property owners are making is that they are not visiting the property on a regular basis. If you have not been to your property within the last year, 2 years, 5 years even, some people haven't seen their property for 20, 30 years. They're paying taxes on it, and that's about it. They have not seen this property. You need to make sure that you're visiting this property so that you can see what is happening on your property. You may have you a nice little survey plat. You know what the boundary lines of your property are supposed to be. But then if you actually visit the property, you could see that things are a lot different than what your records show. And the only way you'll know is if you go see. Things that you might see when you visit your property, if you haven't been there for a while, things to look out for are trees being cut. Some people will visit their property and realize that somebody has cut the trees on it. Perhaps a neighbor had someone to come and cut their trees and they said, hey, go ahead a little further. They'll never know. I haven't seen these folks in 30 years. So they'll authorize somebody to cut trees on your land. Of course, that's illegal, but y'all know illegal doesn't always stop people, especially here in the South. Illegal is not always a thing that stops people from doing the wrong thing. But you also want to look for things like tents. You want to look for trash on your property. You want to look for deer stands. A lot of people will visit their property and see deer stands on the property and realize that someone is hunting on their property. Let's say that person is hunting on your property. Not only is that trespassing, not only do they owe you money for using your land for hunting, but if something happened to them, they shot somebody or they got shot, broke their leg on your property, they're going to forget the fact that they're illegally trespassing on your property. And now you're getting sued for somebody getting hurt on your property because you didn't enforce your boundary lines. And there's other things. You could find that your neighbor is parking their vehicles on your property. They could see it as their own. And if that happens for enough time, they could end up getting a claim of ownership against your property. So you want to make sure that you're visiting your property on a regular basis. Make sure you don't see any signs that someone else is encroaching on your property. You also want to make sure that there are no hazards or anything that could hurt someone if they were trespassing on your property. Of course, we don't want to protect trespassers, but there are certain situations where a trespasser could say, I was on the property, the circumstances, they would have to show that that they made sense, but they could show that they're on your property, they got hurt, and now you're held liable. So that's another thing, not visiting your property enough. You need to know what you have, and you need to go and check on it every now and then to make sure that what you have is exactly the way you left it the last time. The next mistake that heirs property owners often make is not keeping track of family members and their contact information. I have spoken with families that say, we own heirs property. We know this is our property. And I say, well, who is our? And they'll say, well, it's my great grandparents and all of their heirs. And it's like, well, do you know all those folks? Well, no, some people move to California, some move to New York, and we don't have their names, their contact information. And we can't blame people for what happened in the past, but I'm saying if you have any way of finding out who your family members are, getting their contact information, now is always a good time to start collecting that information, because as time goes on, it's just going to get harder and harder to get information on the people who own this property with you. You want to have their names, their phone numbers, their addresses. You want to know if someone has died. You want to get copies of obituaries, death certificates if possible, but at least maintain those obituaries, because they can contain valuable information about where a person lived, when they died, who was in their family. That stuff can be very valuable. So as family members pass away, make sure you know who their children are, who their surviving spouses are, and try to keep those folks on board. So another mistake, again, not keeping track of the family members and their contact information. And it's harder and harder to maintain that information as time goes on. Number 4, the fourth mistake that heirs property owners often make is not making the property pay its own bills. So I always tell my clients, I tell people in workshops, when you have property, make sure it's paying its own bills. If it's not providing you with a place to live on a daily basis, you want to make sure that that property is generating some kind of income, whether it be that you're selling pine straw from the trees on the property, or you're even having the trees maintained in such a way that you can do a timber harvest every 20, 30 years. You also want to make sure that, if there's ways that you can, if it's a actual physical structure, you might consider leasing it out, having someone stay there as a tenant, or even doing short-term rentals with Airbnbs and what's the other one called? I can't remember the other names. So that's what I get for calling people out. But the other places where people can do short-term rentals, you want to make sure that you consider something like that. Or even if you want to create your own company, you can do that. Create a retreat center. I want some heirs property owners to use this beautiful land that they have to put a nice retreat center. It could just be you could just put a trailer on it, or some kind of mobile home. You have it decorated nicely, and just make it a nice little home away from home for somebody who's a writer and needs to get away, or maybe a student who's working on a bit paper and they just need a nice quiet place to work. Make sure they have Wi-Fi and all those things. Or maybe this is a place you don't have Wi-Fi. Maybe this is for people who don't need distractions. So think about ways that you can make your land pay its own bills, so that you can pay property taxes, so that you can make sure that the insurance is up to date on the property, and anything else that's needed. You don't want to have to come out of your own pocket. You go to work every day. You making your money, and now you got to use that money to pay the bills of this land that has all of the capability of making its own money. So make sure you really put that land to work. Everybody's going to have different levels of investment in terms of how much they want to do with the property, how much time they have, what they're willing to commit to. But there are ways to make money with your land, and we will be talking about some of those ways on this channel. But just know there are ways you can make money on your land so that you're not coming out of pocket to pay that land's bills. Number 5, the fifth mistake that heirs property owners often make is executing their own deeds. This is like the biggest pet peeve for me. I have seen all manner of deeds that family members have executed. I'm just going to do a quick claim deed. I want y'all to know there's no such thing as a quick, Quick, claim deed. There's no quick deed. We have quit claim deeds, which is a deed that says any interest I own in this property whether I have 100% ownership or 1% or 0%, I'm giving it to you. And we don't really have any clear understanding of what this person is giving to you. But not even that. When people who are not lawyers are drafting deeds, they don't know all of the requirements for the deeds. I've seen deeds where they say they list an address, like the post office address on the property as the legal description. And that's just not enough, because if you have been around any amount of time, you will know that properties, the address can change over time. So you need something that's a little bit more descriptive than just the address of the property. You want to have an actual legal description of the property. And the legal description, I'm not going to even try to explain what it is, but there are a lot of requirements for a legal description. And so you want to have an attorney to do that legal description for you. I think in some states, people who are not attorneys can do these for you, but I definitely recommend having an attorney or whoever in your state is qualified to draft deeds. But please do not do your own deeds. You can really mess up the title by executing your own deeds if it's not executed properly, if it's missing information, if you random person whose name is not associated with any previous deeds is deeding property to somebody else and neither one of y'all's names can be found on any prior deeds recorded, then it can really make the title confusing. It could result in the property taxes being sent to the wrong person, the property tax notices being sent to the wrong person. If that happens, then you end up with nobody with the right authority getting the information about the taxes needing to be paid. And so families can end up losing land, because when you file a deed with the in the land records, a lot of times the people who the county tax assessor is going to change the name of the person listed as being responsible for the property taxes. They're going to change the name to the person who is the grantee on that new quitclaim deed. And that might be what you want, but it might not be what you want. So you want to make sure that you don't execute your own deeds. You hire an attorney or other qualified professional to do that for you. Another problem another mistake that heirs property owners often make is not hiring the right professionals. And that kind of goes back to number 5. We're not hiring lawyers to execute deeds, and sometimes we're not getting surveyors to help us to understand the boundaries of our property, to understand what the zoning laws are and how that impacts our ownership of this land. We might need tax professionals to help us make sure that we're keeping up income taxes that may be owed from income made on the property, or even land use experts. There are people in this world who can help you to figure out a really great use for your land that fits your families, that fits your goals, that fits your lifestyle. But if you don't hire folks who have this expertise, then you could miss out on a lot of those opportunities. So you want to make sure that you have people on your team who know what they're doing, who understand land, and who can advise you about the best options. Along these lines, but a little bit different, a lot of times families might say, hey, we're going to try to sell timber on our land, or we're going to sell minerals or give mineral rights to somebody. You want to make sure that you are not taken advantage of. There are companies out there. I think they're becoming farther and fewer between. There's fewer of them out there these days. But there are companies who will target heirs property families and say, hey, I know that you own 10% of this land. Can I work a deal out with you for this land? And that 10% owner does not have authority over the full land, but they might work out some kind of arrangement with them and then end up putting the family property at jeopardy. So you want to make sure that when you're working with companies that you ensure that they are reputable, they have the proper insurance. I've heard of companies going out of business and not being able to complete work, and the families kind of put it limbo. Make sure you're dealing with reputable companies with all their licenses and bonds and everything they need, anything that is required for them to do the job. And then have a third party professional that you've hired that helps you to know if you're working with the right kind of people. So that's something that I really want to urge my heirs property owners to be mindful of, because it can really put your property at a disadvantage if you don't hire the right kinds of professionals. So number 7 is the 7th mistake that heirs property owners make, which probably is one of the biggest ones, is not paying the taxes. Some people paying the property taxes. Some people think that if I have heirs property, I cannot pay the taxes. My name is not on the tax assessor's website or on the tax notice, so I cannot pay the taxes. Most tax assessors will receive money from, or I would say the tax commissioner. So here we have the tax assessor who says how much the taxes are going to be, but then you pay the tax commissioner. I don't know what it's like in other states, but whoever it is that is responsible for collecting taxes in your state or your county, I'm sure they will be happy to receive tax payments from anybody, regardless of if they are an owner or not. So you make sure those taxes are paid, because they're also not going to have, you cannot say as a defense, well, the reason why I didn't pay the taxes is because it's heirs property. They're going to say, okay, well, we're going to sell this property to someone who's going to pay the taxes. And they will put your property up for a tax sale. So you want to make sure that you pay those taxes. And if you're saying, well, I don't want to pay taxes on property that I can't benefit from, pay those taxes and keep good records. Keep your receipts. Make sure you get a receipt that has your name on it. Make sure that you are keeping a log of what, if you're having family members contribute toward the taxes, make a list of who is paying and what they paid so that you can keep track of that and help maintain those good records. And so if the property is sold in the future, or if there is a situation where you are getting the title cleared up, or you might even be selling timber on the land. You might put a conservation easement on the land, which can bring some resources. You might engage in some other program that's going to bring money to the land. It can be done that the people who contributed toward those taxes can have some of that money reimbursed to them, because they actually were the ones that helped maintain the property taxes and make sure the property wasn't sold. So there are ways that you can be reimbursed later, but you need to worry about that later. Make sure those taxes are paid and that they are paid on time. The fees and penalties for late payments are very high, and then losing the property at a tax sale is not a good strategy. Some people think if I let the property go to tax sale and then I buy it at the tax sale, then I will become the sole owner, right? That is not right. And this is Georgia law I'm talking about, but it's probably going to be in many states it's going to apply. But definitely check your local rules to see, or talk with a local attorney. That's the best bet for you. But here in Georgia, at least, you let the property go to a tax sale. If you are fortunate enough to be the one who buys it at the tax sale, because it could be somebody else unrelated to the family who shows up and outbids you. But if you're fortunate enough to actually win the bid, the ownership is going to revert back to the original owners. Because if you are an owner of the property and you buy it at the tax sale, the county's going to say, oh, well, thank you for paying your taxes. Even if you're only a partial owner, they're just going to be grateful that you paid your taxes, and they'll return the ownership to what it was. Some people say, well, let me let it go to tax sale. Let me let somebody else buy it, and then I'll come back and redeem the property because I'm one of the owners. And here in Georgia, at least, if you are owner of a property, your property sold at a tax sale, you can come back and redeem the property, which means that you pay the person who bought the property at the tax sale plus taxes and fees and other things. And then you can get ownership of the property back. But guess what? You'll do all of that only to have the ownership returned back to the way it was before you redeemed the property. So you have heirs property again, plus you paid the back taxes, plus you had to pay extra fines and fees and this and that and this and that. That causes it to be even more of a hardship for you. So just keep those taxes maintained. If you own heirs property, if you own family property, make sure that you are making sure that those taxes are being paid. If you can't pay it all yourself, get with your family members and see if they can contribute. So I hope this was helpful for you who own heirs property. I hope that perhaps you got some tips that can help you and your family to make sure that you hold on to this precious heirs property. If I can help you with anything, definitely reach out to my firm. The website is in the description below. We can do a clarity call with you to help you get clear on your next steps for your heirs property. We can help you create an estate plan to make sure that you can protect this heirs property and pass it to the next generation. And we also have a newsletter where we send out resources as we receive information. We send it back out to the folks we are working with. So if we can be of any assistance to you, please reach out to us. I also ask that you please comment on this post, on this video. I hope that you would share with someone that might find this information valuable. And I also hope that you would subscribe to this YouTube channel. Y'all take care and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope that you enjoyed it and learned something. Make sure that you subscribe, like this video, share it with a friend, leave a comment. I would love to hear what you thought. And if you have any questions or anything else that you want to cover, let me know and I'll make sure to cover it in one of my upcoming videos. Again, this is Veronica McClendon, the family land lawyer, owner of McClendon Law & Consulting, the family land law firm. Take care.